Mountains can be eerie and mysterious places. Many high peaks are remote, treacherous, and rarely visited by humans. This makes them not only ideal spots to hide secrets but also places where things can remain lost for millions of years. With that in mind, here are 20 bizarre discoveries made on mountains. Number 20. Waterfalls flowing the wrong way. Located in India, this waterfall is amongst the most lush green landscapes and picturesque surroundings. On a windy day, that waterfall seems to take a turn and no longer obeys the laws of gravity by turning upwards and flowing in the wrong direction. The sheer scale of this one makes it impressive, and there's actually something just the tiniest bit magical, even if, for an old cynic like me, this may well be the most impressive of the reverse waterfalls that we have ever seen. It does look really cool and gives the people standing nearby a proper drenching, which of course is always satisfying. Apparently, a waterspout is a spiraling pillar of air, a lot like a tornado, which then forms over water and carries that water in a gravity-defying direction. In this footage, it seems as though the shape of the cliffs and the direction of the wind has created the perfect conditions for the waterspout to form extremely quickly. The jet spray certainly boggles the old brain since it is a phenomenon that is seemingly anti-everything that we understand about how water moves. But it is a bewitching sight that seems to have had all of the internet commentators having a lovely time discussing it. So, shall we have a chat about it too? Does this weird sight do something funny to your brain? Let me know all about it in the comments section down below. Number 19. The long-lost city. Machu Picchu, which is often referred to as the lost city of the Incas, is an awe-inspiring archaeological treasure high up in the Andes Mountains of Peru. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the seemingly endless lists of new 7 wonders of the world. It's celebrated for its beautiful natural setting, as well as its ancient Inca architecture. Built during the 15th century by the Inca emperor, Machu Picchu was constructed with precisely cut stone blocks, some weighing several tons, and without the use of mortar. Its purpose remains a subject of debate among scholars, with theories that range from a royal estate to an astronomical observatory or even a ceremonial center. Going on in Machu Picchu are related to the ceremonial part. Machu Picchu's location high up in the Andes and surrounded by lush cloud forests only adds to its mystique. The panoramic views of the surrounding peaks, as well as the river below, are awesome, and many tourists make the trip there to get completely blown away by the incredible landscape as well as all of the mysterious history of the palace. Now, for centuries, Machu Picchu has remained hidden from the world and was known only to the locals. It was brought to the international spotlight by American historian and explorer Hiram Bingham in 1911, and ever since then, it's become one of the world's most iconic tourist destinations, drawing in visitors from all across the globe. It now suffers from many of the effects of mass tourism, like erosion and heavy footfall, as well as the surroundings lacking sufficient infrastructure to support so many additional people. But that is the way of such things. Number 18. The Mount Lico Forest. Even though Google Earth is mainly used by conspiracy nuts looking for evidence of government UFO cover-ups, it can also occasionally, anyway, be used to find actual, real, genuine stuff that had previously been hidden from human eyes. Like this cool forest, for example, that was actually not only a real dense load of trees, but it was a mountain that was hiding underneath of it. Cool. This is Mount Lico, an Inselberg mountain in northern Mozambique. An Inselberg mountain is an isolated rock mountain or kind of ridge that sticks out of an otherwise flat landscape. This place had been previously hidden away from view beneath a thick old-growth rainforest that covers it. The mountain is situated at about 3,300 feet above sea level, but it has sheer rock walls like a cliff face containing a volcanic crater. But it's almost impenetrable because of the high rock faces and remote location. It was kind of discovered in 2012 on Google Maps by a man named Julian Bayless, who seemed to have dedicated rather a lot of his career to finding lost landscapes in this fashion. He has since led an expedition to scale the walls of Mount Lico and discover its secrets. And at the very top of the expedition, they found several pots which appeared to have been placed there at the source of a stream at the mountaintop, perhaps for religious reasons. And the plot does thicken. Number 17. The incident at Dyatlov Pass. In a tragic incident that initially appeared to bear all the hallmarks of hypothermia, a group of 9 ski hikers died mysteriously on the slopes of a Russian mountain in what was then the Soviet Union. The mysterious event took place in February of 1959. Turning in for the night after dinner, the hikers never lived to see the morning. They were found in a bizarre series of scenarios which, although upon first glance looked to be another tragic hypothermia incident, the closer the people began to investigate, the weirder things got. The tent seemed to have been ripped open from the inside, and there were footprints all around. The bodies then began to be discovered. One had evidence of blunt force trauma, another had third-degree burns, another had vomited blood, and one had their tongue removed. Some even had clothing that tested as radioactive. The plot does thicken. Various theories have been presented about how this came to pass. There are ideas that involve KGB interference, although for what reason and why that would be the case is not apparent. They could have been victims of a drug overdose, the ubiquitous UFO theory, of course, a Russian Yeti, or the terrifying-sounding notion of something called infrasound, which is the phenomenon whereby the wind interacts with the shape of the landscape in such a way as to induce a barely audible noise that could put feelings of intense panic, nausea, and dread into a person. I mean, seriously, is this a real thing? Can topography and a bit of a breeze do you in? Oh, for Pete's sake, that's not ideal now, is it? Number 16. 5,300-year-old mummy. Otzi the Iceman is a very well-preserved mummy that was discovered in the Italian Alps back in 1991. The mummified human remains are estimated to be 5,300 years old, and despite their age, they contain a lot of lovely, exciting science-based information about how people may have lived during that time. The mummy has continued to attract interest from scientists and the wider public ever since its discovery. He has been studied in great depth over that time and has relinquished secrets to those who have wanted to follow the clues. He was actually discovered by German hikers who were having a lovely afternoon hiking along a mountain path when suddenly they happened upon the top half of old Otzi sticking out of the ice. Now, that would surely make you jump. Anyways, it's believed that Otzi probably died from a loss of blood after having been struck by an arrow. If you want to have a look at this shriveled old wrinkly ice mummy, well, Otzi is on display at Italy's South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology. And if you like that sort of thing, well, there you go. Whether this remarkable discovery is cursed or not is really a matter of opinion, but wherever there's a mummy, there's someone with a notion that there is a curse. For the most part, it's just been the finding of an extraordinary interest for understanding the history of humanity. Now it's time for today's topic. He veered off his typical route due to heavy winds funneling through the valley. As he stabilized the chopper over a snow-covered ridge just east of Valdez, something colossal came into view, partially buried beneath centuries of ice and snow. At first, Talbot thought it was a jagged rock formation shaped by erosion. But as he circled lower, the pattern became unmistakable. Rib-like ridges, scale-textured skin, and a massive coiled tail trailing into the snow. The creature, measuring well over 100 feet long, was motionless but distinct. Its head, partially revealed beneath a melted snowbank, appeared reptilian, with protruding horn-like structures. Talbot immediately captured high-resolution footage using his dash-mounted camera and relayed it to regional forestry officials. Within 48 hours, the area was cordoned off by an undisclosed federal agency. Geologists claim the formation is likely a rare glacial moraine shaped by tectonic movements and snowmelt. But those who've seen the raw footage disagree, pointing to the anatomical precision and texture. Whether it's an undiscovered species frozen in time, or something more mythic remains a mystery. Number 15. Crystal clear ice lake in mountains. This is a video that was posted all the way back in 2014 by a guy who had been out hiking with a friend in the High Tatras Mountains in Slovakia. The footage is extraordinary, as it appears to show the hikers walking across the ice on a lake that is so clear it actually looks like glass. Now, naturally, especially back then, the video got a bunch of attention as everyone weighed in and had a whole boatload of opinions about it. Loads of cynical SOS said that it was definitely fake and that they had never seen ice that looked like that. Well, that's right, Joe, if you've never seen something, then it definitely doesn't exist now, does it? However, despite the internet's apparent difficulty in understanding that sometimes ice is actually clear, because apparently it can be, a geophysicist from the University of Helsinki explained how it happens. They said that the concentration of impurities in the congelation ice is so much lower than lake water. This is ice that's directly from the mountains and has not been mixed with a whole load of junk at the lower level. This can make the ice a whole lot more clear, and the temperature was also so cold that it made an unusual phenomenon common, allowing the ice to be thick enough to walk on. It usually wouldn't have achieved such density and strength in such a way. So there you go. Seems like it was probably real even if it was unusual. What is this fresh hell? Number 14. Hidden treasure mystery. All the way back in 1966, there was a terrible plane crash at the summit of Mont Blanc when Air India Flight 101 miscalculated the descent into the Geneva airport and flew the Boeing 707 into the famous mountain peak. All 117 people on board were killed, and a massive crater appeared in the side of the mountain where the impact had taken place. In the years that followed, a few items have been salvaged from the site, which includes a mailbag containing diplomatic letters and a wheel hub. But most of the search teams were called off because of bad weather. There are still pieces of the wreckage in the nooks and crannies of Mont Blanc. But then, 47 years after the crash, a climber found a case that was full of rubies, sapphires, and emeralds. It had clearly been on board the flight and had been thrown clear on impact, then becoming buried in the ice. The climber who found it took it to the police, and it turned out to be worth about $250,000. If no owner is found, Then it was decided that half of its contents would go to the climber who had discovered it and half to the mayor of the local town where Mont Blanc is. Number 13. Prehistoric Bong pipes in China. Here we are in the caves of Baigong. These are found on and near to the White Mountain in a province in China. Well, while there are certainly plenty of people who will claim that these are mysterious pipes, they have not actually been officially identified in any kind of scientific sort of way. They're technically pipic features that do not have any evidence of having been fossil trees or having had tree roots, and this is not conclusive evidence that they never did, of course. But for some, it would seem that this is sufficiently mysterious to wonder how in the world there are pipes inside of a mountain. The so-called pipes have been variously described as rusty scraps and strangely shaped stones. There has been some alleged analysis at a local smeltery, and this determined that the samples were about 30% oxidized iron and also contained silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. These things can all be present in naturally formed concretions, so although they may look weird, the likeliest story is that these so-called pipes are just weird rock formations in the mountains and nothing especially exciting after all. Number 12. Incan children of Uyaka. In 1999, a grim discovery was made at the frozen summit of a stratovolcano in the Atacama Desert in the Andes mountain range in South America. 3 mummified bodies were found, and these were known as the children of Uyaka because, yes, unfortunately, they were the bodies of children. One of the kids of the family was chosen. They're believed to have been a teenage girl and 2 smaller children, a boy and a girl, aged 6 or 7 years old. This is all fairly dreadful in and of itself, but then it would be discovered that these children were murdered as sacrifices. It's believed that they died around the year 1500 and were then sacrificed to the gods to ensure a rich harvest. Because of the frozen conditions in which they were placed, the 3 mummies are actually the best preserved mummies in the world, and for this reason, it's been possible to establish how they died. It's believed that they would have been heavily drugged with coca and alcohol and then, while they were sleeping, they would have been placed 5 feet underground and left to die. This is utterly terrifying and frankly makes my blood run cold. Number 11. Noah's Ark. A group of evangelical Christian explorers were out doing some poking about in the volcanic debris of Mount Ararat in Turkey when, lo and behold, they stumbled upon the remains of Noah's Arkansas. Well, what do you know? How extraordinary that a group of people who are hyper-invested in the idea of the existence of something just so happened to find it. Nothing strange about that. Nothing to see here, move along, please. What they claim to be Noah's Ark is not, it should be noted, grounded in any real archaeological evidence. In fact, one expert in Middle Eastern archaeology said that he had never even heard of any expedition that ever went looking for the Ark and didn't find it. This basically means that the Ark has been discovered so many times at this point that each new expedition is met with a similar lack of enthusiasm by the archaeological community, and rightly so. This expedition claimed that in 2007 and 2008, they had found 7 large wooden compartments that were buried about 13,000 feet above sea level, almost at the top of Mount Ararat. They then went back with a film crew to prove it the very next year, and they say that they've done their own radiocarbon dating, hilarious since they don't believe in this when it comes to evolution. And they say it's alleged to be an ark that is 4,800 years old, conveniently placing it at exactly the right time to fit with their Bible story. They are naturally keeping the exact location of this discovery a secret. Wouldn't want any actual scientists to have a look now, would they? Number 10. Super old Viking sword discovery. Now we're off to a planned Norway, where a discovery was made back in 2018 when a bunch of reindeer hunters headed out into a high-altitude area of Norway. They were surprised to discover more than just reindeer. They happened upon an amazingly well-preserved sword that had been left there by a Viking. The sword was wedged between 2 rocks, and despite the blade being rusty and the handle and so on having clearly rotted away, the sword itself was in a remarkably good condition. It was analyzed and apparently determined to be approximately 1,200 years old. The reason that the scientists think that it managed to stay so intact is that the extreme cold combined with the low pressure of the mountain may have slowed down the rusting process and preserved it in this condition. The sword dates to somewhere between 850 and 950 AD, and was most likely the property of a Viking swordsman. Unfortunately, despite optimism that this was one of many potential artifacts, the area has not yielded any more objects. The theory of how it ended up there is that a Viking who left it was perhaps lost, maybe during a blizzard. What do you think may have happened here? Go on and have some thoughts about it in the comments section down below. Number 9. Secret UFO Base. According to some of the oddballs that like to spend all of their precious lives staring at Google Earth images trying to find evidence of secret stuff, some alien hunters have discovered what they're calling a secret entrance to an underground UFO base in the Himalayas in Nepal. Well, alrighty then, that all seems totally legit. I have no reason to believe that people who spend their days actively seeking proof of UFOs on Google Earth wouldn't actually find something. This seems like they would all be the last people on the planet to discover such a thing now, wouldn't they? Apparently, there's a large part of a peak on a mountain that's blacked out on Google Earth, and they say that this is totally evidence that there's something there that the so-called powers that be don't want any of us to see. And when your fixation is on aliens, well then, of course, the only legitimate reason for covering something up would be because it's related to your own personal obsession. What else could be hiding behind this big mysterious area of mountain? Go on, chuck a few of your own ideas down in the comments below. Is it aliens? Because I really need to know. Number 8. Buried treasure in the Rockies. Millionaire retired art dealer Forrest Fenn had a stash of gold in the Rocky Mountains and published a cryptic poem called The Thrill of the Chase in his autobiography, which was designed to lead explorers to set out in search of the treasure. It sounds like fun, but of course, nothing involving a big wad of cash is ever without controversy now, is it? This guy, a medical student from Michigan named Jonathan Jack Stuff, was one of those treasure hunters, and he found the buried gold, which is allegedly worth between $1 million to $3 million. But the thing is, though, some people think he might have actually cheated to find it out. Now, it's claimed that he had actually hacked emails and text messages so as to track down the treasure, and that, frankly, is rather rude, even in the world of cutthroat treasure hunting. But I mean, they are pirates, aren't they? After all, despite all the allegations, he claims that he never even used GPS or any other modern technology to locate the gold. It is a tricky thing, and no doubt that old rogue Fenn knew it would cause a proper kerfuffle, and that's probably exactly why he set it up in the first place. The sketchy information led some to call the whole thing a hoax and fake. But what do you think? How far would you go to find a buried treasure? Is it all fair in loot and war? Number 7. Ancient coil-shaped artifacts. Here we have a dubious story that appears to have been oftentimes repeated by several websites which are especially fond of UFO stories and the sorts of nonsense and conspiracy theories that are grounded in a certain type of discriminatory judgment of people and places. But this is the basics of this so-called discovery, isn't it? Apparently, back in 1991, some very tiny coil-shaped artifacts were allegedly discovered in the Ural Mountains on the banks of a river. These coils are so small and precise that it's been hard for people to even believe that they could possibly have had an ancient origin that had such excellent technology. Well, that may be the case, especially when we're talking about an imaginary culture that is said to have existed 300,000 years ago and had nanotechnology. Sounds like a load of hogwash to me. And also, if this is the case, then why have they only just found these coils now and only in this very specific area? Also, who dated these artifacts? Well, whatever this is, it's cobblers with no genuine evidence available, so we should just swiftly move on. Number 6. Arrows from the Stone Age. Back in Norway, where this time we're in the Lom municipality, and poking about in the side of a mountain, archaeologists were out examining the area back in 2017 when they happened upon a few choice specimens. These were arrows that dated back to both the Middle Ages and the Iron Age. Ice had recently melted in the area and had revealed the hidden objects in the stony ground of the mountainside. But on closer inspection, they also realized that they had found an arrow that was even older, perhaps as much as 2,000 years older than these original findings. The Stone Age discovery was likely trapped in the ice here for as long as 4,000 years. I mean, I know it just looks like a stick, and it kind of is, but the archaeologists have been studying this stuff for a real long time, and they can apparently tell the difference between a regular stick and a Stone Age arrow shaft. It's clever stuff, I'm sure. The ice had worked its magic and preserved the arrow in time, keeping it just as it had landed when it was fired by some Stone Age hunter. Number 5. Extinct bird's claw. About 30 years ago, a group of archaeologists were on an expedition in a massive cave inside of Mount Owen in New Zealand when they discovered a weird object that gave them the willies. It was a colossal claw which still had flesh and scaly skin intact, and it looked in the gloom of the cave, to all intents and purposes, to be a dinosaur claw. It was so well preserved, in fact, that they could only imagine that it must have come from something that was only recently deceased. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community, as it was rare to find such an intact specimen in such a remote location. Further analysis revealed that the claw likely belonged to an upland moa, a species that once roamed the rugged terrain of New Zealand's mountains. The mummification process had been aided by the cool, dry conditions of the cave, which acted like a natural time capsule. This allowed researchers to study not only the claw but also gain insights into the bird's anatomy and its adaptation to its environment. Actually, though, it turned out to have belonged to a creature that died 3,300 years ago and had been mummified in the cave, the conditions being perfect for the preservation of this piece of the dead animal. The animal that they had discovered was not a dinosaur but a moa. Moas were a type of huge flightless bird that was native to the islands of New Zealand for millions of years, up until around 600 years ago, when they became extinct. As science has become more and more sophisticated, it's become possible to figure out just how this might have happened, and guess what? It was done by humans. These big old birds had been bumbling around quite happily for literally millions of years, and then in the late 13th century, humans arrived on the islands. And if you do some pretty basic maths, that coincides with the extinction of the moa bird. So what could possibly be the cause of these birds' sudden and untimely demise? Scientists now believe that humans have behaved in a pretty similar way for a lot of our history, just killing stuff and taking things and not really thinking about the general impact of their behavior. So whether for food or sport or just bloodlust, people systematically removed the moa from the face of the earth. Number 4. Goats that defy gravity. Mountain goats are rather extraordinary animals. They have a remarkable ability to clamber up nearly vertical cliff faces and dig into ledges that are barely even visible. It seems to defy gravity. Mountain goats are basically climbing machines, hairy, horny machines, and their bodies are extremely slender, and their hooves are essentially purpose-built for ledge-balancing antics. Their incredible balance is also aided by their strong hind legs, which allow them to leap impressive distances between narrow ledges. Additionally, their thick, woolly coats protect them from the harsh mountain winds and freezing temperatures, enabling them to thrive in extreme environments. Some researchers have even suggested that their climbing skills are partly instinctual, passed down through generations of goats that have adapted to these treacherous terrains. Watching them navigate these cliffs is like witnessing a real-life, physics-defying spectacle. They have a hard outer part that helps them to dig into the ledges and a soft pad underneath their hooves that molds to the mountain's contours like climbing shoes might do. So all in all, even though it looks impossible, these goats are designed for this terrain. The only part of the whole remarkable quality is the actual mechanics of the climbing itself. It's really rather rare to see the mountain goats in the process of climbing, on account of the impossible places that they're doing said climbing. Scientists and biomechanics are keen to study the bizarre clambering habits of the mountain goat in order to figure out exactly how it is that they do it despite the vertical surfaces that they seem to scale. Number 3. Iron Age skis in Norway. Ice seems to be a super effective way of preserving really old stuff. This is the discovery of a single wooden ski that was found on a mountain in southern Norway all the way back in 2014. It was determined that the ski was 1,300 years old. Experts believe that the skis were likely used by someone traveling across the snowy terrain, possibly for hunting or transportation. The craftsmanship of the skis, including the bindings, suggests that they were carefully designed for both durability and functionality. Researchers have even speculated that the skier may have abandoned them during a sudden snowstorm or accident. The discovery has provided valuable insights into how people adapted to harsh winter conditions in ancient times. But the truly remarkable thing is that years later, they actually found the other ski from the same pair. These are the best preserved skis that have ever been discovered from this long ago. The second one was even in better condition than the first, and it seems that this is the reality of having been buried deeper in the ice than the first one that was discovered. Number 2. Leaf fossils in the Himalayas. Fossils aren't always just about dinosaurs. Sometimes plants have been fossilized and made millions of years old art in the rock. This is the discovery of plant fossils at 5,800 meters above sea level on a mountain plateau in Tibet. They've undergone some experiments, and the researchers have determined that these leaves date back to 15 million years ago. The fossils were so well preserved that scientists could even identify the intricate vein patterns on the leaves, which provided clues about the climate at the time. It is believed that the region was once much warmer and lower in elevation, supporting a lush, forested environment. This discovery also suggests that the Himalayas were still in the process of rising, driven by the collision of tectonic plates. Such findings are helping researchers piece together the ancient history of Earth's landscapes. They think that the leaves were alpine oak and a type of tuber. Interestingly, these plants do not grow at such a high altitude, so this also gives researchers insights into the way that the land has moved and the shifting of the tectonic plates and the mountain ranges over the course of those millions of years. Well, that's all for today's mountain expedition. I hope that you're all still with me, and none of you are left clinging to a crag. Number 1. Yeti in the Spanish Pyrenees. Well, yes, there's obviously nothing at all suspect about this whatsoever. It seems totally legit to me. This was filmed in the Pyrenees at a Spanish ski resort when a skier was out on the slopes and captured this footage of a Yeti running across the mountainside. The figure appeared to be moving quickly, with an awkward gait that only added to the mystery. Some viewers claimed the creature's fur looked too pristine to be real, sparking debates about whether it was a prank or a publicity stunt. Others pointed out that the skier seemed oddly calm for someone who had just spotted a mythical beast. Still, the footage went viral, with conspiracy theorists and skeptics alike dissecting every frame. Well, a guy who was dressed as the abominable snowman legging it out of the area. Anyway, clearly it's all very silly, and we should move swiftly on. Sorry for insulting your intelligence. Which of these strange discoveries has you the most puzzled? Share all your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.